Hey everybody, it's Chainsaw Reacts. What you guys are about to listen to is my hour-long phone interview with Eric Loomis, the voice of Iron Man from Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes. He was fantastic to talk to. Of course, we talk about Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes. We also cover other variety of topics, including life and other projects he's worked on, and just overall, we cover a lot of different topics in this, so I hope you guys are prepared for this. Now, I just mentioned that this is a phone interview. There is no visual besides an image I put up. He was unable to do a video interview like a StreamYard type format, which is completely fine. At the end of the day, I got to talk to Iron Man. That's what's most important. So listen to this as a podcast. I think you guys are going to really enjoy it. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this interview with Eric Loomis. Well, I want to thank you for taking the time out to speak with me. I'm not sure of your schedule, but um, I was just blown away by Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes. Like, I'd heard about the show when it aired at the time, but I never got around to seeing it until about, I would say, 2019-ish, 2020-ish is when I started seeing the show and watch it from a channel. And your voice as Iron Man was so awesome. Like, I loved the voice. And
Oh
then
wow,
and then
thank you.
look and then looking into your IMDb and seeing you voiced him for a lot of different projects. How did you come across in becoming Iron Man? Because I saw your first credit, and unless IMDb is wrong, is Iron Man 2, the video game. How did that come about?
That came about because I was already on the show, and that was
Oh,
kind of
okay.
an interesting story. Talk about another guy who's I'm a huge fan of. Steven Stanton
Mm.
had done the first video game, and but I mean to get the part of Iron Man, I had gotten that just through an audition at the office
Mm-hmm.
in 2008, in about I think it was October.
Oh, okay.
September, October of 2008, at the end of the summer that was Iron Man. And I saw that film a couple times. I just loved it. And I love that Robert fought for the role to make it an older guy who's seasoned and,
Mm-hmm.
the whole thing is supposed to going with a younger guy because that's evidently the story goes that they were looking for, 20 something Iron Man or whatever. And he fought for the role and got it, which is just gave it so much more depth. But I just loved the show, loved the movie, and so when the audition came up, I went, "Oh wow, this is exciting." And there weren't that many lines. There was one short scene between me and Rhodey
Mm-hmm.
where they're driving somewhere and they're talking, and so there was some of that is Tony Stark sarcasm
Yeah. I
and
remember that. I
whatnot,
remember that scene. That was in the
and they wrote the description of it. It was so. I thought it was cute
yeah.
because as much as I wasn't a I'm not a comic book guy,
Mm-hmm.
but I just was enamored by it. I love the movie, and if when it's done right too, like Spider-Man, the original Spider-Man, but not into it, like most people. So, but when you get the sheet, the sides to read this little scene, and it says, "And this is what Tony Stark is," I'm like, come on. After what Robert did, who doesn't know?
Yeah.
The sarcasm and the wit and everything. So they didn't say, and because I had done sound alike stuff for somebody else before,
Mm-hmm.
but they weren't asking for a sound alike because it was a series. So I went, well, I'm going to do my best to do just more of a personality, just to really embrace the personality and maybe throw it in his vocally in his area.
Mm-hmm.
And that led to a callback. And when I went on the callback, I was told by my agent, she goes, "It's down to you and three people, and they're favoring you. So go out there and get it." And I was like, "Oh, okay." Now, that might have been just some nice, fun coaching
Yeah. I
to,
mean, it
to
worked.
build my confidence because it was a lead in a series,
Yeah.
and I hadn't had a lead in a series before. As you can see in my IMDb, I've done more commercial work than animation.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing about it too was it's my own voice. And I was like, man, I really like doing character stuff. I like doing the silly stuff and whatnot. Like I had done some stuff with Kung Fu Panda, and so that was sound alike, but it's Jack Black. He's really big and great, gregarious, and crazy and whatnot. So it's outside of myself.
Yeah.
But this is kind of more close to the best real acting. So anyway, so I went and did the callback, and it went really well, and I got the part, and I was just beside me. I was like, "What? Are you kidding me?"
Well.
I was blown away. And at that time, my youngest was 6
Mm-hmm.
or 7, and my oldest was 16, and so I was cool with both my kids.
Awesome.
for a little while.
Oh well, I mean, if
And yeah, they after a while, I was like, yeah, you're Iron Man. My youngest said, yeah, Dad, I'm sorry, I'm a Captain America fan. Sorry.
oh come on.
I prefer Hawkeye. That's what it was.
Oh, okay.
So
If my dad was Iron Man, I would cherish that forever. That's amazing. And when you answered the phone, I was like taken aback because I wasn't. I mean, I'd heard you in previous interviews, but actually hearing him like it's Iron Man. Tony Stark is talking to me on the phone right now, and I was like, whoa. Like I love the fact that you got a little bit like it's your voice, but you have a little bit of Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man in the voice, but it's ultimately a unique take because a lot of times now people when they think Iron Man, they think of Robert Downey Jr. But
right.
when I think of Iron Man, it's in that realm and your voice is in the realm, but you've made it your own. And the fact that you were like you said,
Oh, thank you.
a lead on the show, did that feel like a lot of weight on your shoulders? I mean, you of course had Captain
Oh
America,
man.
you had these other heroes, kind of leading as well. But how did it feel to be kind of like, okay, my character is running the Avengers, like he's funding all of this, and he's in pretty. I think you're in every episode. So, I mean, how did that feel to kind of take that big jump to leading the show?
Heavy. It
Heavy.
was heavy. And,
Mm.
I wish I was who I am now.
Mm.
I was a stress ball. I gotta be honest with you, because like I said earlier, walking in to the room and there's Fred Tatasciore,
Yeah.
Troy Baker, Chris Cox, Wally Wingert, Colleen O'Shaughnessy. Everybody. I was like, oh my goodness. And then somebody who I grew up watching. We're about the same age. I'm a little bit older than him.
Mm-hmm.
Brian Bloom,
Oh.
who's just fantastic as Captain America.
Yeah. He's so good.
Brian, I knew from the soap opera days when he did a soap opera that I think it was the same one that Meg Ryan was on, and I was head over heels for Meg Ryan when I was a kid, and saw him and I went, who is this guy? This guy can act, and there I am sitting next to him, working all these sessions.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that, and that's heavy enough as it is, and then you have your guest stars show up like Lance Henriksen or Mark Hamill shows up,
Yes.
and you go, oh my gosh. Hold on a second. I'm in the wrong room, And I remember it was funny. I think Troy was the one who said it. We had a session where we had, oh my gosh, what's his name? A couple of British actors who are Graham McTavish, and oh my gosh, I'm not going to do the justice on the other gentleman, but they were there and they're English actors and they do a lot of on-camera work and a lot of good on-camera work. And, in fact, the other guy was in Pirates. He's one
I'm trying to think.
Pirates of the Caribbean. In the crew with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
In the first couple of them, and he's a voice actor and he's a director. He's an actor. Period.
Mhm.
On camera, tons of stuff.
Yeah.
So we're doing the session. And as somebody finishes their part of the script, they're released to go. So we'll take a break and they'll go out and sign their contract, and we'll go back to recording our stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so one British guy was let go. The next British guy was let go. I can't remember who it was. I think it was Troy. But, I can breathe. The Brits are gone because of the pressure of, we're American actors, silly voice actors, and here come these English-trained actors,
Well,
and I said, yeah. Now you know how I feel when you guys leave the room.
yeah. Well, I mean, like the show had so many different guest
that gives
stars.
you perspective of pressure. I'm already pressured with my heroes within voiceover, and then someone like those guys show up. It was some very stressful days.
Well, I mean, you definitely made it through because I mean, you had so many guest stars and so many characters appear on that show. I mean, the show could have easily went on for several more years. I mean, talking to Joshua, who was the executive producer, he said, "Yeah, we had ideas for season 3, and there were so many things you guys could have, went into in terms of storylines and everything." What was a storyline you loved the most that was covered on the show that you really remember?
I really like the battle between Tony and Cap.
Oh,
and
okay.
There's the one episode where Cap says, "Come on, I'll show you what real fighting is."
Ooh.
And up in the rafters is Hawkeye and Hulk.
Yeah.
And they were looking down at me getting my butt handed to me. And he says, "Yeah, you can't always rely on technology, Tony." And so that whole theme, I think, is what I like the most. And then coming back to Brian Bloom, and you get to do it with Brian Bloom. He's just great. He's just fantastic. So
I really like the episode where you were like Emperor Stark for a good portion of it because the Purple Man had turned you, and
oh,
I really like that because it was a different perspective on Tony because the idea was like this is what Tony really would want in terms of like protecting the world, but basically becoming a tyrant. And I like that
yeah.
angle because Tony isn't ultimately like that. I mean, that's what I think I liked about the approach of the show and your interpretation of it is that Tony, he has flaws, but he would not ultimately go that far. He was pushed that far because of the Purple Man. So I thought that was a really interesting take on the character because the whole idea of in the movies like Robert's Tony putting a suit of armor around the world, it's kind of like that same idea of protecting it but then taking it too far. When it comes to voiceover, because you mentioned you guys doing sessions, was it more of voiceover sessions as a group or individuals? Because I know shows do things differently in terms of recording. Was it usually just group sessions for that show?
Thankfully, it was a bunch of group sessions.
Okay.
There were times when you'd go in and maybe your episode was short, so you'd come in and just punch in your lines.
Mm-hmm.
But I vaguely remember a couple of those. But maybe I missed an episode because I was sick or something like that. So I'd go in and do a one-on-one session. But most of the time, I'd walk in and there'd be the horseshoe of chairs and mics set up, and it'd be at least four of us, and that's so great because you get to play off of each other.
Yeah.
It's that's going back to the technique of voiceover. A lot of times, like, especially on games, you're wildlining things. Which means you're doing it based on what you think the other actor might say, or they'll maybe play if he's already recorded. They'll play what he did, and then you can kind of get an idea and do your lines. But then they'll do 3-4 takes of 3 in a row or 4 in a row of the line, and so you're really playing off of that energy. You have to get that energy up as if it's just you're in the moment in the scene in a scene with another actor, but nobody's there.
So it makes you
great to do a session with everybody like that.
So it makes you basically play it differently because with the interaction with the group sessions, you're able to play off each other, and that probably feels more natural, like an actual conversation versus because I've heard a lot of video games is single sessions, you're by yourself.
Yeah, it is absolutely, and all the ones I've done have been single, just me.
Yeah.
But again, sometimes they'll play a scene reference, but you just get that reference leading in, and then they have you deliver it 3 or 4 different ways that it might fit, based on the direction. But that's where, again, back to the accolades of the people who do all the real work, in my opinion, is having a good director. He knows. He knows what's going on. He knows what they need.
Mm-hmm.
And so they know how to direct the actor to get that. Jamie Simone, who was the director of ours, would get up out of his chair and go, because then it's like, he'd act out. I mean, he was into it, man.
Yeah.
And I'm going to forget somebody's name, but the most recent game that came out that I did.
It was, I have it here. It's Marvel Future Revolution.
Yeah, Jamie. What's his last name? I can't do it. It's Mortadella. Jamie Mortadella.
Mm-hmm.
I think is the name. I'm probably butchering it. He is at the same thing. Really good, and he's a good actor. He would get up and do, so he's going blah blah blah, and we'd deliver a line, and then so you're going to come in and do this and do that, and he would act it all out and get up out of his chair occasionally, and just a really good director. So again, back to, they're guiding. The actors, and we have to be trained to be able to come up with 3 different ways to it's the same delivery, but a little bit more emphasis on this word or a little more energy here, but they're your guide for it. It's still, though, much better work with a good director and the crew and the crew of actors, because then I think it just raises it up even more.
Did you ever have sessions where you guys could improvise, or was it completely scripted out to where there was no improvisation? How do you say that word?
Improvisation, yeah.
Yes.
Pretty much to script. There was in the very beginning, because I love to improvise and add a little, but nothing to take away from what the intent of the line is.
Mm-hmm.
just kind of maybe a sarcastic little addition, like, and so that happened, silly stuff like that.
And that makes sense with Tony. Like that's what he would do.
Yeah, well, and there was a little bit of freedom in that in the beginning, but one of my favorite examples there's an episode that Christopher Yost wrote. Tony gets blasted by somebody, and he lands in a cornfield somewhere in Iowa, and there's this little crater, and he's crawling out of this crater, and this farmer on the tractor slowly rolls by, just staring at him. Doesn't say a word, just rolls right by, stares at him, and keeps rolling by.
Yeah.
And Christopher wrote in there, just waiting for my ride. I mean, that's, so he's brushing himself off, and I'm like, I've got my efforts. I'm going, oh, jeez. And I wanted to say, hey, how you doing? And pause. Yeah, I'm just waiting for my ride. Oh, I love pause. There was just nothing I could add.
Yeah.
All it needed was that brushing things off, stopping, looking up at the farmer who's just staring at you with that empty glaze, like, look on his face, and saying what Christopher wrote, which was just waiting for my ride.
I mean, it's a great line. It's a great Tony line.
Oh, I just love it. That and my favorite was Juice It, Thunder God.
Oh yes, when he shoots the lightning.
On the train tracks to put the thunder, put his hammer down onto the tracks to electrify everything, and we'll wait for it. Wait. Okay, Juice It, Thunder God. I mean, we just had so much, several laughs over that line.
It was great to experience the show and to hear like all the different voices like come together and all these characters and then all of the different dynamics of everything. Something I noticed on IMDb I thought was really cool is that your first video game credit is a game called Star Wars Rebellion.
Yeah, that goes way back.
Yeah, 1998. Was that your first credit in terms of voiceover?
It is.
Okay.
Well, it's for in animation, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I had done some been doing commercial work.
Mm-hmm.
And trying to break through and get a gig, and that came up, and they liked what I did. It was very Red Flag Leader 1, go. Red Flag Leader 2, go. And it was pages and pages. It was a 4-hour session of just short lines like that.
Now,
kind of just a utility voice,
Yeah, when it comes to like video game voiceover, like as a single session thing. Is it really that repetitive where you're saying a line over and over and over until they have like enough takes, or is it to where it depending on I guess on the project would depend on how long you're actually sitting there, because I would assume in video games it takes a long time to get, especially if you have a lot of lines, it'll take you a lot of time to get through it.
It does, there was one game I did, and we went right to the 4-hour mark with a 1 10-minute break. And it was that many lines, and it was, they'll go, okay, give me 3 in a row on this, here's what's happening, and then I go, okay, when you're ready. And I'll give 3 in a row of, for lack of a better thing, Red Flag Leader 1, go to the side. Red Flag Leader 1, go to the side, and then a third one. And they go, okay, great. And then he would tell, keep B, take. Let's do 3 more just to see what we got. So I'd do another set of 3. And the most I did that day was that. Other than a couple times I did a third set of 3. And we just made it by the 4-hour mark. I didn't bobble any lines. Because that's where another bit of pressure comes in for me. I talk fast.
Yeah.
I read fast when I talk on the lines, and I gotta remember to slow myself down. And because the faster you go, 1, you're not gonna give as good a delivery, and 2, you run the risk of bobbling that line, stumbling over words, especially with the big words that Tony says sometimes. So, but yeah, so usually it's that you're supposed to come in there ready, packed and ready to go, so they can get you 2 or 3 sets of 3 in a row and move on to the next.
I mean, like, is the 4-hour, you keep referencing the 4 hours, is that usually how long a session has to go before you have to stop? Is that like
That's
a certain...
contracted time, yeah.
Oh, contracted.
For one session.
Okay.
For a game. But a lot of times I'm, like the Future Revolution one,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I went in for an hour and a half session here, 2 hour session there. You know, I don't think I did one full 4 hour session with them.
Gotcha.
But it was spread out over, you know, a long time. So
Well, I mean, that's interesting because I've never heard that before. That there's a contractual like set amount. I mean, it makes sense because you don't want to ruin your voice. Because I mean, at a certain point, even with a 10-minute break, like that's a lot of work on your voice because you're putting everything into your voice. Like that's your acting, you know.
right, and the other thing is they save all the yelling and screaming to the end. And now, if you're coming back the next day for another session, and it's a Wednesday or whatever, they're gonna. Or not that it's a Wednesday. It's see, you know, they try to schedule if they have a big heavy load thing and you're working, you know, the you got another session coming up for somebody else. They try to schedule it so you have a couple of days off
Mm-hmm.
from any kind of major yelling. So that say it, like say you do 2 sessions this week, they can put this last session on Thursday or Friday. So you do, you know, you do all your yelling, and then you do all the yelling and screaming and efforting and dying and whatever at the end of that session, so you can go home and rest your voice.
Yeah.
And that one I mentioned, I didn't have even without all the yelling and grunting, which I didn't have hardly any. It was Capcom, one of the Capcom games. I went home and the next 2 days I could barely talk, you know, just from the regular stuff because it was 4 hours of nonstop talking.
I mean, and
So.
what's a regimen that you would use to help with your voice? I know there's like different voice actors. They do like some herbal tea or some sort of like mixture of honey or something to kind of help with the throat. I mean, because I mean, if
Yeah.
you lose that, then that's that's your job. I mean, for a lot of people, I mean, that's something that you rely on. And if you're still in the recording process, you definitely want to keep that up.
Yeah, I actually lost my voice once.
Mm.
In fact, it was at the end of 2007, which was going to be leading into starting to work on Kung Fu Panda.
Mm-hmm.
And they had to delay my work on it because what happened was I had busted a blood vessel in my throat,
Mm.
and there were some nodes on my throat. And when I talked to the ENT doctor, he said, "I want you to go home." He said, "I don't want you to speak." I said, "I know you have small kids and stuff, or young kids, but you know, you just can't talk." And I go, "Okay." So I came back 2 weeks later for a follow-up. He says, "It's looking better." He says, "You're not talking?" I said, "Well, no, other than, you know, hi or bye." He says, "No, no, no, no. No." He says, "Nothing." He says, "The best recovery for your throat is speaking literally nothing, because even when you're not speaking, as you breathe, your vocal cords are vibrating and they're working." And I said, "Oh, I did not know that." So that is the best medicine, is just take time off from speaking at all.
Oh,
But yes,
okay.
tea, herbal tea, honey, and an apple is very good for your throat.
Mm.
The juices from an apple is good. But the bottom line is absolute rest.
Yeah, and I mean that makes the most sense because I mean the whole breathing and your throat still being, it's still functional. It's just a
Right.
scary thing because you hear about those stories of people blowing their voices out. I guess that makes sense with the 4 hour cutoff for a session because you can't push everybody too much. I mean, literally, you're putting all of your effort into the lines, and eventually your voice is going to give out. So that's pretty good. You actually mentioned Kung Fu Panda, and when I was looking at
Yeah.
IMDb, I was like, that is like seeing Star Wars Rebellion was cool, but then all of a sudden, Kung Fu Panda Legendary Warriors game, you voiced Jack Black's Poe.
Yeah.
How like so? I actually listened to a clip of you voicing Poe from the game, and I was like, that's a pretty spot on impression of Jack Black. Like,
Oh, thank you.
so they were just looking for a mimic for that, and just someone who
Yeah,
could do the voice.
that's a funny little story. But 2005, I was messing around. I did an audition where they wanted some crazy guy, over the top guy, and my booth director was laughing. I went, "Come on, dude, that was not that funny." And he goes, "No, no." He says, "It was just kind of a silly script." He says, "No." He said, "It was a commercial. It was just some commercial where they wanted some like crazed fan or something like that." He goes, "Do you realize how much you sound like Jack Black?" What? And literally 2 months later, the audition to do scratch track for Kung Fu Panda, as they were starting to work on it,
Mm-hmm.
came in where like Jack wouldn't be available, and so they'd bring somebody in to do stunt voice basically, and get lines recorded ahead of time to kind of get it, storyboarding or whatever what it is they do, and I auditioned for it, and they loved it at DreamWorks, and so that's the one where I almost lost that job, and then I wound up not getting the series with Nickelodeon. I went to Mick Wingert. But what I did with Kung Fu Panda was, and I didn't, my voice wasn't recovered in time to do the main game for the release of Kung Fu Panda. My voice just wasn't ready yet. And so Mick did that game. And then once I healed and was completely back, I did all the commercials, and I did some Fisher-Price toys and stuff like that. I did a funny little, beanbag toy from McDonald's or something like that was that they were doing with the Happy Meal and stuff. So that was a blast, doing all that.
Well, that's great that you got to do the voice for that, because that's interesting credit for sure to voice a popular character from DreamWorks. And I was just like seeing through your list, and what I like is that you literally you just go to like different like iterations and play Iron Man, and they basically go to you to play Iron Man. Like with Marvel Superheroes 4D Experience, I'm not sure what that is. It's some sort of short. Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3. Oh, okay.
They did a little. They put together a Marvel room.
Oh, okay.
And we did before you go into the room, we recorded. It's like a 10-minute little video, a cartoon about the Avengers coming and saving the world there in London or whatever it was. And you watch that, and then you go into the experience.
Okay.
And Madame Tussauds in London. That was the first one, and I think it's in New York and in Korea as well, or something like that. It's in other places that Madame Tussauds is at, but
that's very interesting how you've done many different like little things involving with Iron Man in terms of a series and games. I mean, the Marvel Future Revolution, everybody was talking about that game when it came out. I even tried it out too, and I didn't realize you were voicing Iron Man until I saw the IMDb. I'm like, holy crap! Like it didn't even click because I just hear Tony, oh, that's Iron Man, and then realizing, oh, it was you, and then I came across where you were doing interviews talking about it. I was like, that's really cool that he got to do that, because
yeah, that was fun.
I mean, that game definitely is interesting. I'm just overall I'm just happy with what you've done with this character and what you've done, because you've done some great stuff.
Thank you very much.
Throughout the years. And are you working on anything now that you can't talk about? Because I was curious about how, voiceover actors in terms of like with the pandemic and everything, with all this, it's like, a lot of things were having to change in terms of studio recordings. Like, are you like in the process now of doing something, and maybe the whole entire thing has changed in terms of how you're recording it, or are you taking a break right now?
With the Future Revolution, we did sessions at the studio, but with all the COVID protocol put in place, and they'd let me in the door, and then I'd go in the mask, and the guy had his mask and put me in there, and everybody was remote except for me and the engineer. So Jamie, the director, was somewhere else, and the Marvel guys and the Netmarble guys. Netmarble, I think, is the company that put that out.
I think so, yeah.
I'm, the wonderful people. That's the other thing too. Is on top of it's just a little aside again. On top of having such respect for those people who put these games together and all the work that those people do, every single one of them is just the nicest people in the world. They're so kind to you, and it's that's such a beautiful thing about it too. But and then I've been working on some mobile app game, but I don't even know the title of it. With Bright Skull. Bright Skull Entertainment. I've done a few sessions with them at a studio, also set up for COVID.
Okay.
In Hollywood, so I'd gone there and done a few sessions, but that's it right now. I'm older, and I just don't do as much work anymore. I still audition every week. There's something comes in, but it's a whole different industry now, and there's so many people trying to do it. It was difficult to break in the first place. When I first started doing voiceover for commercial work,
yeah,
it was they were using a lot of the same people. It was just kind of breaking it. In fact, the term was now we're branching into kind of trying to capture that Gen X sound. That goes back to from when I first was getting into commercial work, and there were certain people like Quentin Flynn was working nonstop, and Kane DeVore and some other guys, and I got in there and started working commercially a lot. But I don't know, I lost my train of thought here. So breaking in back then was just opening up when I got in there.
Yeah.
And now it's so wide open that you'll audition for something, and the agent will collect their auditions of the 10 or 15 guys that they're going to send in on the part to the producer, and but you have 5 other agencies or more that are sending it in from LA alone.
Yeah.
And then you have Chicago and you have New York and people from overseas sometimes auditioning against you on certain jobs. If they even get to go through all those voices and hear all the voices for that job, they might find the voice within the first 3 submissions and go, "Oh, this is it. This is the one we want." So all those auditions don't even get listened to sometimes.
And I feel like that's not fair. If you got people who audition, you should listen to everybody just in case.
Well, yeah. The thing is, like back in the day too, there's not a lot of casting directors anymore because they realize, oh wait, we can get free auditions from the agencies.
Okay.
So the agencies send in, so they throw it out there, they cast their net, and send it fax and say, we need this voice for this part, and you can submit up to this many people, and so that agents will put their top 10 or whatever on that, and maybe a couple extra, and send it in. And so they're not focused on we need to listen to everybody. They are focused on, we need to find this voice and get this production going and get this job done. And we need to find the best voice. But if they find the best voice in their opinion at that time, whereas when they use a casting director, if I'm working in LA, if they were casting it out of LA, Chicago, New York, there's this casting director here in LA that is only reading 10 people. So only 10 people out of all of LA, let's say, this is just an example, are being submitted from LA. 10 from Chicago, 10 from New York. This is going way back when.
Yeah.
And so they have only 30 voices to listen to. But, again, they get to the middle and they go, oh, that's the one we like. We really like that. They might kind of listen to the rest, but they're stuck up on that guy or woman or whatever who read that. And they're like, that's kind of our bar right there. We like that,
Yeah.
And then there's who knows what they're doing with the advertiser and the client. The client gets involved, and the client, it sounds like my brother-in-law. I like that voice, and maybe not necessarily the best read on the part, but it's what they want, Well,
I think now too, there's so many more like animated stuff and even video games being created now more than ever. Like, it's crazy how much more production is going into making all these shows. I mean, Netflix seems like they're upping their game in terms of how much animation they're putting out. And there's so many more video game companies now putting out like games all the time. So, I mean, it's just like, it's getting harder because there's so many more people doing it, but because there's so many more projects being created. Like, it's crazy how much more stuff is out there now to watch in terms of content.
Yeah, it's tons.
It's
and they're still looking for more.
And that's why I've been pushing, and many people have been pushing for Avengers: Earth's Mightiest Heroes to come back, and that's what I would want.
Man.
Would you come back if they were to announce the show is coming back? If they asked you
in a heartbeat, and I'd take half pay.
There you go.
Absolutely.
There you go.
No, I'm so grateful to everybody I worked with Marvel and Jamie Simone and to have that opportunity of just what are you kidding me?
I mean, it was so
my wife
awesome.
and I were sitting in our living room one day and we saw this promo on TV shoot, and she goes, "You realize they're promoting this in New York, and but then they're broadcasting it everywhere, and they played your voice in the trailer." And I'm sitting in my shorts in Burbank, California, in our little place, and we're going, "Wow, I'm Iron Man."
Yeah.
For that moment.
Yeah.
For that moment.
Yeah.
Because Matthew Mercer, Troy Baker, I think, has done it. Nolan North has done it. Mick Wingert, I think, has done one. Lex Lang. There's a lot of guys who have done Iron Man's voice. So that's another reason I'm grateful, is that Marvel called me to do these different things, doing ADR on the films, and I got to do some park stuff for overseas in Hong Kong, and do the ride with Paul Rudd and Evangeline Lilly, the Ant-Man ride.
Oh, okay.
So that, I mean, it's just, I just, every chance I get, I'm excited, because there are other guys out there that can do it. And then, but even if you collected all of us together, it's the 10 of us, let's say, I think there's about 10 last time I checked, with Matthew and Nolan and those guys. You sit there and you go, all 10 of us go, wow, dude, we're filling in for Robert. We get to play this iconic role.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? It's just this, it's a kid in a candy store, to pull an old phrase out.
Well, I mean,
kind of dates me, but
I'll be honest, besides Robert, because I think he's so good as Iron Man, my favorite Iron Man in animation or any form of besides live action is you. I've always, once I've heard your voice and realized you've been voicing this, like your version of Iron Man for all these different projects, I just go, this is the voice of Iron Man. Like this,
wow, thank you.
You've just done such a great job, and I appreciate your time for talking with me, because I'm sitting there, I'm going, because what I like most is that I can actually have a conversation with you, and like that's what makes me humble, and I think what makes you a humble guy is that there's a lot of people in this industry that they're nice, but they just want to be by themselves or whatever. It's good to have a conversation and actually talk with you versus, okay, here's a question, okay, here's the answer, okay, here's another question. It feels like I can actually talk with you, and that's awesome.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate this style much better, because I really enjoy talking with people, and I think that's the old school of, I mean, Jimmy Fallon's still doing his thing, but Sam Jones, I think it's Sam Jones, had the off camera with Sam Jones. Have you seen that?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's just fantastic, because it's exactly what you and I are doing.
It's just a
conversation. You just sit down and talk and have a conversation about life with these people.
Yeah.
What they've been through and all that. And I think it's just, that's more fascinating than, well, I'm promoting this movie or promoting that movie, and here's a little joke, ha ha ha, I mean, that's important too. That's entertainment. But the Sam Jones type interview, which I believe Robert was the very first one he did.
Yeah, he did do it.
It's fascinating, because you get an insight into who the people are.
Yeah, that's very true.
And I have to say one last thing, kind of on that same note about the humility thing.
Mm-hmm.
Chris O'Donnell, the actor who was on NCIS in L.A., who was Robin in the Batman movie.
Yes.
He said something in an interview. They were complimenting him on the fact that his series had been going for 10 years and this, and he said, well, I have to say something. He said, and they said something about, doesn't that feel great? Don't you feel proud about that? And he says, I don't feel proud about it. I feel proud about my work. He says, but you know what? I'm more grateful than proud, because there are probably 100 guys who aren't working today that could do that role better than I do. I'm the lucky guy who got the gig.
Mm-hmm.
And, the turnover in Screen Actors Guild used to be, I think 90% every 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. Maybe that's overreaching, but or 75%, of people who show up today, join the union, and are trying to become an actor. 5 years later, 75% are gone.
It's a crazy business.
Turnover of people who are trying to get in the industry and trying to act and trying to get parts, maybe get a commercial here or there or whatever. And then after 5 years, they got to get a real job. They got to get a life that's going to feed their family. And so I am grateful for every time that phone rings, or even just an audition,
Yeah. And it shows in your character. I think that's why you probably got the chance, because they probably also, besides hearing your great voice, but also just, meeting you the person, meeting, who you really are. I think that's the most important thing, is that you don't lose who you are at the end of it. Because, I mean, you've done so many great things, and you could be like, well, I don't have to do this and this, but you see it as like, I'm lucky to do this. Like for me, I felt honored that you emailed me back and went, yeah, I would love to talk to you. I'm like, oh, okay. Like I just reached out thinking because I send out email requests for interviews and I hardly get any responses. I don't even get the
Oh wow.
I don't even get the common courtesy of a no from a lot of people. But with but
That's
with
not cool.
but you know it's the way things are. People are busy. But the fact that you emailed me back personally was really like it just made my day. I was like blown away that
Well,
you
can
responded.
I tell you, I learned something. I grew up around the industry,
Mm-hmm.
around a lot of actors that you would know and recognize in films and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And I grew up around then young actors who were doing what I wanted to do. If they were doing it, and I was like, oh, how do I do this? And I met a young lady who came to our school in high school, a year younger than me, Lori Lynn Lively. And her dad, Ernie, was an actor. In fact, he was the very first cooter on Dukes of Hazzard series. They had shot it in
Oh.
Georgia, which is what brought them out here.
Mm.
And Ernie just passed away last June. But he taught me so much in the 10 years I spent with him, off and on with acting classes and training and coaching and whatnot, and hanging out as friends. He we worked on his car one time together, and I would drive Robin to an audition here and there, and just a great family. And he told me many things about humility, or taught me many things about humility. And one thing he taught me, he gave me an example of an actress who had been somebody, and then her career had kind of waned, and was coming back in some film. And he says, and immediately on this set, she was acting like she was who she was before, which is not right either. She just had this attitude. And he said, I watched the supporting actor walk off camera and look at her and go, you really should try acting like who you were before you got to be who you once were, because you're not that anymore. And walked away from her and just undressed her and made, told her, think about how you got to where you got, and being a kind person and generous person, because she turned into this diva, which is maybe why she didn't work anymore after that. And then now she's coming back and acting like that again. I'm kind of botching the story, I'm sure, but
well, you
get the point.
Yeah,
it's like, you know what?
Yeah,
you never know. The receptionist at your agency could one day be your agent, and that actually happened to me. And her name's Melissa Grillo, and she was just the sweetest thing. And at one Christmas, I came in and gave everybody gift cards for Christmas and a card, and I included her, and because I was taught to do that. You don't just thank the money people, if you will. There's the big names. You treat everybody the same, and she later became one of my agents. She moved up through the ranks and couldn't have been more helpful and loving and supportive. So,
well, that's great that you learned that early on and carried that with you, and that's great. That really is.
Yeah, it was a shock to lose him. I unfortunately I haven't been in touch with the family for quite a while. But yeah, that's just every day I think about the fact he was a presence. My uncle passed away Christmas Day 2020, and then my one of my closest friends just passed away a month ago, and all three of them. I went to Lisa. I went, why? So and so passed away, and I know that, and they're gone. That's sad, but there's something about these three men. And it was they just had a presence, and they were so humble, but they were always present and loving and giving, and that's what stuck with me. I miss them every day,
Life just throws stuff at you. I'm so sorry for you to lose them.
Oh, I didn't mean to.
No, it's
sound like a sad sack.
No, it's okay because we all
smile every day. Every day I think about those guys, I laugh and I smile. Even Ernie, who I hadn't seen in many, many years.
Well, it's a thing to where life just kind of throws curveballs, and life just kind of like you had that time with them, and it helped you grow as a person. Like that's ultimately what it is having those experiences and learning from others that maybe they didn't learn that when you are now, and they're trying to help others so that they're they're trying to help the younger generation, if you will. They're trying to,
Right.
and I feel like that's good that you learn that and to continue with that. Because
Well, you look at today's like saying it's hard to get a hold of people.
yeah,
You look at people in the media and when they're interviewed, it's so much about. I understand the whole "do you boo," or find your truth and live your truth. I understand that, but I think the perspective is then. But before you do that, you've got to respect other people first.
mm-hmm.
It's just so sad to see this young generation going, well, I'm this and I'm that, and they snap their fingers, and they think they're so cool and hip. It's not a good look.
No, it's not. No.
And now on that note, let me say something. I watched. I want to throw this back at you.
Oh.
I watched several clips, several pieces of your YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
and you have a presence because anybody can put a camera on these days.
Yeah.
And videotape themselves doing it and have a web page and blah blah blah. You have a certain way you are talking to somebody. I don't feel like you're talking to a group.
Mm-hmm.
When I watched it, I went, oh, I wanted to keep listening. Even it wasn't a show I knew anything about, but I wanted to keep listening and watching you because you were engaging and because it was like you were talking to one person, to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so kudos to you for that, man. And that's a great thing to have. And hopefully you'll just continue to go and grow with that.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
It was definitely a process. At first, I was uncomfortable on camera. Like it was so weird to talk to something that's not talking back to you. It was definitely odd. It definitely is.
Yeah.
It's a crazy journey, but I mean, like with you, like with voice acting and things, and learning from that process, it takes time. And in my case, I just had to learn to talk to something that just staring back at me, and I have to just trust that what I'm saying it's getting across to the audience.
You pulled it off because, again, that's not easy to do.
No.
Because
people still ask me, how do you start doing this? I'm like, you have to do it. You have to push yourself. And probably the same thing with all these people, like we were mentioning earlier about people getting into the industry in terms of voice acting. You have to just push yourself to try to get in there. It's not going to be easy, but if you have a passion for it, you have to do it. You have to be open to criticism. Yes, exactly.
That's the other thing I see the lack of these days. People are like, well, who are you to say that? Well, I'm, I do a little directing on the side here these days with, aside from the industry, it's with kids musicals. And
okay.
One of the young guys who was helping us, he's like a high school student. He said, how do you know all that stuff? And I go, what are you talking about? I said, you did that over there with so-and-so, and you gave them the right direction. He says, yeah, but you say it differently. I said, I've been around a long time. Mm-hmm. It's not that I came up with that brilliance or some sort of brilliant thing, rather.
Yeah.
It's that I've watched. I'm an audience member. And if you are going to say if somebody's then going back to what that person's saying, who are you to say this or say that?
Yeah.
I'm the audience. You got to know your audience.
That's true.
Yeah.
And
so if you're going to snub your nose and go, well, that's my art, and whether you like it or not, then good luck. You're going to be pounding sand and not selling your product because you're not listening to what, the criticism of how to make things a little bit better. It's not that all of it is correct.
Yeah.
You need to listen to it and weigh it up and go, well, okay, I'll adapt a little bit, but I still want to stay true to you still need to stay true to your voice, of course.
Of course.
But you need to be open to, oh, well, I blink every time I say that word. Or I twitch when I, whatever, like the on-camera thing or whatever. You have a little tweak in this or something in your voice that sounds southern when you're saying it. I did a Toyota campaign years ago, and they said, you know what, I'm sorry, but we need to have you say this word this way. And I went, what am I saying? And they played it back, and I go, see, it sounds like you where are you from? And I went, California. I was born and raised here. But there was a Midwest lilt to my voice for some reason.
Yeah.
And I had to tweak it. And I did so because they were paying me good money. and I wanted to keep the job. You know.
Makes sense, yeah.
So anyway, I'm rambling here.
No, it's okay. It's all good.
I hope I'm making some sort of sense. But
No, it's all about learning. Like you're learning from your experiences, and then you're just transferring that to someone else to learn. Because with those kind of plays, like kid plays, like they need to learn too. If they have a passion for doing something like this when they get older, it's good that they learn from somebody who's been in the business that knows. And also in the sense of like going back to being humble, it's like you're not trying to be rude or mean to them. You're trying to help them, and that's ultimately what is like ultimately that's what matters at the end of the day is like you're actually trying to help the individual. You're not trying to hurt them or put them down in a sense of that you're not good enough. You're just saying if you do it this way, it will come across better, or this will come across better for the audience to see it and to notice
right.
it. Yeah.
Well, the whole thing too is I think the best approach for directing is because a lot of times when I did booth directing too, I directed from casting sessions. They're coming in. These people are coming in with talent.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that their talent is bad. It's not that they don't know how to interpret the script, but it's more about coming alongside and going, "Wow, I love what you did there and did there. Let's try to smooth it out a little bit. Let's try to, you're encouraging. It's more about encouragement than direct telling somebody how to do something.
Yeah.
You try and take what they bring and help them mold it into the right thing, and as opposed to telling them you need to do it this way or that way. Because if you do that, it's like you're just going to get a forced performance. And back to that young kid, I said, you said all the right things. I just said it a little fancier because I've said it so many times in my life.
Yeah.
I've been around, and I think the best directors are people who are audience members. They know that they've been an audience. Uta Hagen was a great acting coach. Said, watch all the good stuff and watch all the bad stuff, because then you can find your boundaries on how to when you're creating.
Mm-hmm.
How to balance that out.
Well, that makes sense, and I think that's, it's at the end of the day, it's all about just trying to help out everybody to be better at what they want to do in terms of what they think is their calling in life. I have a friend of mine who literally she's going into theater, and she's all excited because she got accepted to do some theater roles, and this is something that she really didn't do a lot years ago, but now it's like something she feels like she has to do. And I'm really happy for her because she found her calling, because it's something that she'd like to do when she was younger, but now she's actually doing it in these plays that are in San Diego in California. So
okay.
Yeah, so she's really happy about that. Well, I didn't want to keep it this long. We've been on for an hour now, but
Well, can I say one more thing?
Sure. Yes. Of
about
course.
Just another. This is my favorite example of encouragement.
Okay.
And then not complimenting me, but this just an example.
Okay.
This musical we did a couple years ago. There was this young girl who had done one musical before.
Mm-hmm.
These kids are all. We have 4-year-olds all the way up to 12-year-olds.
Okay.
And she wanted to audition, and she had done the first musical and was shy as all get out. Stood in the back and would barely move and very stiff. And her friend dragged her to the audition for the part, and because she was auditioning for the other part.
Mm-hmm.
And she was, it'll be fun. Y'all be this part, because it was a teen part. And she did the audition, and she crumbled, and she dropped a line, and she forgot this and forgot that, and she got all shy and giddy and whatnot. And we said, guys, do it again. And then it's a room of 6 people, myself, the director, and some helpers as well. So anyway, they did it again, and they left, and they went, oh, forget that. And I went, no. Hold on a second. She's got it more than anybody else. Yes, she's crumbling, and she's shy, but I think if we, we've got several weeks, and I said we give her encouragement, and she keeps working with her friend. It's a buddy thing,
Yeah.
And I said, I think she can do it. And again, I don't mean to pat myself on the back at all. I could see that she was the best one. And they all agreed she was the best one, but they were nervous about her confidence.
Mm-hmm.
I said, we just need to support her every way. I said, watch when she'll come out of it,
Yeah.
We get to the show, and we would do a dress rehearsal. And then the next day we'd do 2 shows with an audience and film them, because we put these on DVD. and then we do a fourth performance on Sunday morning for our church. And so she did the dress rehearsal and was just perfect. And she goes, "What do I need to change?" And I go, "You're doing great. Just keep doing the same thing." And I gave her a couple little directions. The next day for the first main performance on camera, she killed it again and was even better.
Mm-hmm.
And she came in and she goes, "What do I need to do for the next performance?" Because we had like a 2-hour break. I said, "Sweetheart, just remember I said, yeah, I'm done. You're doing it. I've got nothing for you." She went, "Really?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "You've got this." I said, "It's so great that you've come out of your shell and you're doing this and you're nailing the part." So the next show, she was even better. It was unbelievable. And she just had a little extra something,
Yeah.
extra confidence. And again, she nailed it the night before with the dress rehearsal, but it got better each time. So then Sunday morning, she comes to me and she goes, "Anything?" And I go, "Nope, have fun. This is the fun performance. We're not filming or anything. Just have fun." And she did things. I remember sitting off to the side, and the director stands in the center and kind of directs the music as it's going. She did some things that nobody told her to do because she now knew the character and had the confidence to do whatever she felt within that character. So she did a few little shrugs and this and that, and a walk and a jaunt and a little extra little one-line thing here. And the director looked over at me like, "What in the world?" And it was just, and so here's my bottom line. It was such a beautiful thing because they're the ones up there having to risk their embarrassment of falling on their face, and they're doing it. And to see someone like that do it, that's what's so fun about being the encourager or the director, is to see these people who come in with this little bit of talent or a lot of bit of talent, whatever, and they get to help them along with it, and I see them explode like that. Oh, I mean, that's better than being on the stage myself.
I mean,
it's such a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And I just wish more people would do that. Would just, in life, encourage somebody. Come alongside somebody and just give them a pat on the back. Help them along with just a smile and a "how you doing today," whatever. In life, not just this stupid, silly entertainment we do,
I mean, it just encouraged people in general just to follow their passion, follow what they want to do in life.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you pushed her to be herself and to open up. I mean, that's really, and she's probably going to remember that for the rest of her life because you did that for her.
I hope so. Because that's and that going back to what telling that kid, I've had a lot of years. That's what I remember when I was a kid was those moments of somebody coming up and going, "You did it. Nice job," or "You can do it," or whatever. Those are the things and those memories of then going up on stage and doing it that I remember. My brother-in-law directed a thing I was in. We just did 2 shows, and I had this monologue with the crowd, a comic monologue, and it was so funny, and it was kind of Robin Williams-esque. And so I did my monologue in the first show, and it was me in the spotlight talking to the audience, breaking the fourth wall. He came out, he goes, "Oh man, you nailed it. That was great." He says, "But he says, you have more time." And I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Do whatever you want. You have the audience in the palm of your hand." He says, "I'm sitting next to the spot guy. I'm the director. You're not, he's not turning that spotlight off until you tell us you're done. So go for it." Man, dude, it was the most fun I've had on stage that I can remember. I got in, hit the monologue. I took some pauses that I didn't normally take. And then the audience member laughed, and I looked over at them and gave them a little, "Really?" And it just added into the monologue because it was me having a conversation with the crowd. And it was the freedom of it all. And that's another one of those moments that, there's another one who's passed too. He passed away in 2017 who made an impact in my life and all the positive. Encourage people, to motivate people. You encourage them, lift them up, because tearing them down doesn't do anything but tear them down.
Yeah, it's not good. No.
Yeah.
Well,
so I'm sorry I'm doubling on more. I don't want to keep you either.
No, it's completely fine. I appreciate just chatting with you and getting more insight into your life and just everything else. I mean, it's, I'm glad is that the conversation morphed into something more. Like, that's important because at the end of the day, it's like these shows and like the games and everything, and voicing Iron Man and voicing Poe and Star Wars Rebellion, all these things are part of your life, but ultimately it's what got you there. Like that's what's most important is what got you there. So like, it's completely fine. I have no issue with the conversation getting to that level because ultimately it's about your journey getting to that point and how you then push off your knowledge to other people and for them to learn from that. That's important. You know, that's ultimately
thank
what
you very
matters.
much, man.
Yes.
And if things do change, if there's more Marvel stuff to come, I've got your email, and I will. I'd love to talk with you again if something comes up.
Oh, of course. I would definitely love that. I thank you for your time.
Do not hesitate. I'm open and willing. We just have to figure out the time.
Of course.
But always open and willing to talk.
Well, thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for.
And you keep up your great work.
Well,
I'm telling you, man.
Thank you.
I enjoy. I'm probably going to go back and watch some more, my friend.
Thank you. I thank you so much for that.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Well, have a great rest of your day, and I definitely want to talk to you again. Yes, for sure.
You got it. You too, and I hope you and your wife continue to heal and get stronger.
Thank you very much, sir. I will talk to you hopefully soon.
You got it. Take care, man.